everyone? Hope all of you are doing well. I'm hoping the audio on this sounds great. Just got a new microphone, so I'm hoping it picks up the audio a lot better. But today I'm going to be starting off the Nightmare on Elm Street review, franchise review, with A Nightmare on Elm Street, which came out back in the, I believe, the early to mid 80s. I want to say it's 1980. Let's see if we can find it on the back. I want to say it's like 84, 83, somewhere around there. Why don't these ever have the date to tell you when they were released? I see 2020, when the Steelbook came out, but I do not see. It does not say, for some odd reason, when this movie came out on the back. But that's okay. It'll show up on the title of this video. But yeah, it was written and directed by Wes Craven and stars Robert Englund and Heather Langenkamp. I'm sure I butchered her last name. Now you have Nancy, who's played by Heather Langenkamp, who basically, she is being haunted by this killer, this man who, is burnt. He has this glove with knives. He's got this hat and this Christmas looking sweater. And this guy's name is Freddy Krueger. And she basically is, trying to convince her friends that they need to stay up. They cannot sleep, that this guy will, in fact, kill them in their sleep. And if they die in their sleep, then they'll die in real life. Now, the film itself at that time was something truly, truly amazing. Robert Englund's performance was fantastic. The whole premise of this film is so interesting how, most killers in horror franchises, were in broad daylight, or, were an actual somewhat being of some sort. You had Candyman in the 90s who, wasn't really there. You had to really call him for him to come. Same with Hellraiser, you had to solve the box for them to come. With this, it was just you're being haunted by this guy in your dreams. Now, what I love about this movie is the score. The score is probably one of my favorite horror franchise scores, probably my top 5. I feel like it's on top of, the top 5, which would also consist of the score to the first Child's Play film and the Phantasm score, which is another great score for a horror film. And, A Nightmare on Elm Street is no exception when it comes to having a great score. Now, Robert Englund's performance is fantastic. I think, his performance throughout some of the films in the franchise are great. Of course, as we would get into the later movies, it would have that more comedic route than anything. Which was really a shame, and I'm not 100% sure why a lot of these horror films went in that direction. Some of them, yes, they're still scary, but at the same time, they're laughable. And you kind of see a theme going with that with a lot of the horror franchises that we've gotten over the years, and not 100% sure why that is. I don't know if that was just something they just happened, or, it was kind of wasn't aware that all these horror franchises had some similarities. They would just the sequels would slowly get worse and become comedic films throughout the years. But nonetheless, A Nightmare on Elm Street definitely, definitely scared a lot of audiences when it was released, and to this day still continues to scare a lot of audiences who, watch it at home during the Halloween holiday. I will say that there are moments in this film that are definitely scary, like Tina, when Heather is basically, she's fallen asleep in class, and I believe you see, Tina, who already was killed by Freddy, Freddy kind of, tormenting her with, the deceased Tina. Very, very terrifying, especially if you watched it for the first time during that time of its release. And I do like that we get somewhat of a backstory on Freddy Krueger and what led him to become this dream demon. I've always been fascinated with the character and how I feel like a prequel movie on just the character before he becomes what he is in this film, I feel like would work as a great film or a great TV series. And I like that we do get somewhat of a backstory on the character in the movie. Now, there is something I thought was pretty interesting. This is kind of a deleted scene of some sort. As we're getting a backstory, there are specific things that we didn't get in the main film that was part of a deleted scene. And I don't want to get into too detail, but it definitely should have been added in because I felt like it would have gave more meaning to the backstory and more meaning to why a lot of these individuals are being tormented by Freddy and things like that. So, definitely something in my personal opinion. Now, Heather Langenkamp as Nancy, I think is great. She is one of the early Scream queens out there, and I thought her performance was great, especially at that time, her being a lot younger. And the actor who plays her father, he's been in other things. He recently passed a few years back, and was well known for being in a lot of great movies. Enter the Dragon, I believe he was also in as well, and he plays the sheriff. He plays Heather's father, and Heather tries to convince him on things that are going on. I won't give anything away, but I think his character does start to come to the realization when things start to happen, but I won't go into full detail with that. But nonetheless, this is one of those movies that I feel like, regardless if it hasn't aged well, it will still stand. It will still be a film that people will continue to grow and love. And considering that we're hitting the 40th anniversary next year, it's just truly, truly but unbelievable. And apparently we're supposed to be getting a 4K release as well come next year. So I'm pretty excited about that. Especially since I'm a fan of the film, it's definitely one I would love to have in the collection. And yeah, I wish I could say more about A Nightmare on Elm Street. I feel like it's one of those movies that I'm sure a lot of you have seen, but for those who have not seen it, I'm sure a lot of people will tell you that you need to check it out. It's definitely recommended. Mind you, it did come out in the early to mid 80s, so, expect some cheesiness out of it. Excuse me. But nonetheless, I think it's a great story. I think the film for its time is great, and to this day I feel like it still continues to have some type of an effect on people. I like, all the characters and, the actors I think are great. And if you're a fan of Johnny Depp, this is best. This is probably the film to, really get into, because this is the film that started his career. It wasn't too long after this he would go on to do the 21 Jump Street series, and then when that series was done, or I think when he was done with the series, I'm not 100% sure if he had stayed throughout the whole series, he would go on to be this big time star. So, and continue to this day. So I would definitely recommend the film if you're a fan of Johnny Depp. But nonetheless, I want to thank you guys for tuning in to this review and my thoughts on A Nightmare on Elm Street. And definitely keep an eye out, as I will be reviewing A Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge. And of course, I will continue on with the whole franchise. But this will be a re-review for the film, where I can talk a little bit more, a little bit better. And yeah, thank you guys. Let me know what your thoughts are on A Nightmare on Elm Street down in the comment section below. And definitely give this video a thumbs up. It is much appreciated. I am trying to reach that 4,000 hour watch time, and if you want to subscribe to the channel for more content like this, then it's much appreciated. So with that being said, I am Film Talk with Mike, and until next time guys, we'll talk films. Peace.